utility's ultimate evolution, and perhaps one of the greatest, if not the single greatest, high-performance sports utility of all time. Aloha guys, it's Joe Tunney. I'm visiting my very good friends here at BMW of Hawaii. And they have probably the single nicest Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk available in the United States. The 600-mile fresh trade-in is simply the most thrilling sport utility you're ever going to drive. But let's start in the back. I want to hear how it sounds, and I want you to hear how it sounds. It's not only one of the most astonishing vehicles to drive you'll ever drive in your life, but it sounds pretty darn amazing. Let's start back here, and I'm going to turn it on. Take a look underneath the hood. So this is a 6.2 liter V8 engine. On top of that 6.2 liter V8 engine is a 2.4 liter IHI supercharger, putting out over 11 pounds per square inch of boost. The combination is 707 horsepower and over 650 pound-feet of torque in a package that, despite being almost 6,000 pounds with you sitting in it, goes 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. It's not just an amazing car, it's a true supercar, and perhaps the single greatest SUV ever. If you take SUV for what it stands for, sport utility vehicle, well, is this sporty? Sure, it's the most sporty sport utility perhaps of all time. Utility? Of course, it has amazing utility. It's a Jeep Grand Cherokee, one of the most useful and family-friendly vehicles ever made. The performance on this car is absolutely unrivaled. Even by high-performance sports cars, this is a tough act to follow. Taking a look around the side, you'll see there's very little outside of that supercharger that gives the car away. 20-inch wheels shod with Pirelli P0 rubber, Brembo 6-piston calipers up front, Brembo 4-piston calipers in the rear. Let's jump in. We're going to take it for a drive. One thing you'll discover very, very quickly is that the Trackhawk is very comfortable. In fact, despite that astonishing horsepower and incredible sounding exhaust, it's actually fairly quiet inside and easy to get around in. You can hear just a little bit of the whine of the supercharger. And in launch mode, how you do it is that you put it into launch mode, which is right here in the center console. And what that does is, if your foot is deep into the brake at a standstill, it allows the gas to individually dispel into the individual cylinders and gives the supercharger time to ramp up and get ready to do its thing. And when it does its thing, it does it to the tune of 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. Sport utilities of this size just don't do that. It's a number that defies belief. 707 horsepower in a vehicle of this size. You might think, gosh, that's probably the most difficult thing to drive in the world. No, it's not that way at all. It's incredible to drive, but it's easy to drive as well. And so think of the other Dodge products, the Hellcat series, for example. You know, those are thrilling, high-performance sports cars. This is that as well, just in a sport utility with a great long wheelbase that's easy to drive. Well, let's get a feel for some of that power. So 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, sure. This is 0 to 100 in not much longer than that. A tremendous sense of urgency and no real slop, so to speak. You know, sure, there's a little bit of give in the tail under full throttle, but considering how powerful it is, it's just a little. The brakes, you know, this goes from 70 to 0 in 168 feet. I'm not going to totally slam on it, but give you an indication of that kind of... Not bad. Not bad at all. Lots of cars go fast, but don't necessarily do it all that safely. This tracks beautifully, handles beautifully, accelerates in a way that's absolutely thrilling. I think the only comparison I might have for something like this is the high-performance Mercedes line. Something about the Jeep, though, I just think it's an easier car to live with. One nice thing about it being a Jeep is it is a true four-wheel drive. So maneuvering it on difficult terrain like this, well, that's what it's built for. Taking a look at the center area, you'll see that there's track mode, sport mode, snow mode, and tow mode. Now, one thing that's real different in a vehicle like this than any other high-performance sports car is that this will actually tow 7,200 pounds. And then again, if I want to send it to something like launch mode, that's this feature right here. All I'm going to do is put my pedal to the floor here, the brake pedal, and I'm not going to accelerate it from this position, but that's going to allow the supercharger an opportunity to build up while the car is at idle, and when you floor it, it just gives you that wow response. I don't know if you need it. This car gives you wow response at any speed going to any other speed. It shifts magnificently. This is a ZF8HP transmission. It's the single finest transmission made in the world, but this is a beefier version of that. It's called the ZF8HP 95. And this series of transmission is built to withstand over 800 foot-pounds of torque. So like everything in the vehicle, you know, even the differential in the back, it has a great big chain for handling all of that power. All the sprockets are forged, for example. The driveline is massively reinforced. The tube walls are much thicker. Everything about the driving mechanism of the vehicle is super enhanced and built to deal with the massive amount of energy that this engine makes happen. Is this a true daily driver? Well, that's up to your own personality, but for me, this is like my fantasy kind of vehicle. This is the kind of thing that you can bounce around with the kids, you can bounce around to Costco, you can take it up to the mountains for the weekend and load up the back for whatever it is that you want. There's really no limitations. Just because it has a lot of horsepower doesn't mean it can't do all the other things that Jeep is famous for, but that power is absolutely intoxicating. And from this more elevated driving position, it's a totally different personality than any other sports car. This is something, whether you're seriously consider buying one or not, take it out for a drive once in your life. It's so different than anything else you've ever driven in your life that you're going to absolutely be floored. And if you have any questions about this, and I'm not kidding, this literally is the single nicest pre-owned Trackhawk perhaps in the whole world, reach out to my friends at BMW of Hawaii. And if you have any questions of me, please don't hesitate to reach out at joeloveshawaii@gmail.com.